But now, let's come to the next stage of the story, and it's about this man. And I like the photograph they chose, because this is a photograph of that era. This is Olusegun Obasanjo. We like to call him Chief Obasanjo, the two-time president of Nigeria. There's a lot of similarities with Fly Lieutenant Rawlings in terms of being a military ruler who hands over power and then comes back to take power by the civilian way. So Obasanjo and Rawlings, even though they didn't like each other, are very, very similar contextually in the politics of their various countries. Now, here's Obasanjo. The question we're asking is, how did Chief Obasanjo, a South Yoruba, become so influential in Nigeria's politics such that he was able to influence the North? That's a question we're asking right now, and we're going to show you the answer to it. So here's Obasanjo. Then as a colonel in the Nigerian army, we've already told you that a civil war was fought as a result of the Igbos being particularly unhappy with the dominance of the Northerners. The Igbos felt that they should be in. They felt that Awolowo, their man, had been displaced and misplaced, and they were unhappy with it. The Igbos were quite powerful because they were economically quite strong, and so they wanted to use their economic strength to get out of Nigeria. They were angry with the North, so they went into a civil war. The North alone fighting the Igbos was getting complicated. Then stepped up Chief Obasanjo, who was a colonel in the army. He went in with his battalion and was able to capture the Igbo soldiers and donated them to the northern rulership of Yakubu Gowon, and was a big peacemaker. The North of Nigeria's political elite in the North always felt then that they owed Obasanjo something. And that's how come Obasanjo became very powerful in being able to deliver votes in the North when he was a South. Now, we'll take you through the story, and the story comes back to 2023. You will still see the context. I told you, remember, Ahmadu Bello, Azikiwe, Awolowo, and Tafawa Balewa. All of them, the founding fathers of Nigeria, have something to do with election 2023. Let's see the next video and how Obasanjo delivered the rebels who were fighting against the Nigerian government to Yakubu Gowon, and that was the end of the Biafra civil war. Have a look.
We have fought a long, bitter battle, and it has ended in a victory for common sense, victory for the unity of this country. And we have got cause to thank all the people of this country for what they have done to help to keep this country one. But I think above all, the gallant officers and men who had given their lives that this nation might live. And we have with us today Colonel Obasanjo, and unfortunately the other field commanders are not able to be with us at this moment. But we have Colonel Obasanjo, who is the commander of 3 Marine Commando, who had been able to capture a number of senior secessionist officers, and he had brought them to Lagos to see us in order to let us have their acceptance of the spirit of one Nigeria.
To formally give up secession and report for reappointment and redeployment. Philip Effiong.
Hello. Your Excellency.
Glad to see you again.
My pleasure.
How are you?
Very well indeed.
Glad to see you again. Thank you.
Patrick Amadi.
How are you?
Excellency.
Glad to see you again.
Thank you very much.
Glad to see you again.
It's an experience.
Honestly. Glad to see you again.
And I would like, therefore, to take this opportunity to say that I, Major General Philip Effiong, officer administering the government of the Republic of Biafra, now wish to make the following declaration. That we affirm we are loyal Nigerian citizens and accept the authority of the Federal Military Government of Nigeria. That we accept the existing administrative and political structure of the Federation of Nigeria. That any future constitutional arrangement will be worked out by representatives of the people of Nigeria. That the Republic of Biafra hereby ceases to exist.
Was the single most important day in the life of Colonel Obasanjo, later to become General Obasanjo, and later to become President Obasanjo, and later to become former President Obasanjo, who is now wading into the political conversations. Congratulations, Chief Obasanjo, but that's how he became important. The northern military elite always felt that Obasanjo had gone into the bush and worked for them, and he had captured the Biafra secessionists, and he had delivered them to Yakubu Gowon. But that's not the end of the story. So that's Obasanjo. Let's move on. Another very striking similarity occurs in Nigerian politics. I don't understand how it happened. I don't know whether because in those days the technology was not today. We don't get to hear what has happened in Nigeria. Because what happens in Nigeria almost certainly happened in Ghana. In 1974, Yakubu Gowon, who had given a timetable for return to constitutional rule for 1976, decided in 74 that he was not going to do that anymore, that he thinks that it's not time for full civilian government recovery. It should be a union government of sorts. 1974, it came with catastrophic consequences. His government got overthrown in a bloodless coup, as the commentator will say. But that which happened in 1974 in Nigeria, same thing happened in 1976. General Achampong was quite popular until he made the announcement in 1976 that he was not going to hand over power to a constitutionally agreed arrangement and that he was going to do a union government. He occasioned a referendum for Ghanaians to make a decision whether they wanted a union government of military and civilian or that they actually wanted civilian rule. That's what happened in Ghana 2 years after it happened in Nigeria. Let's see how it was captured in Nigeria. 1974, this is Gowon in trouble.
Despite all these negative events, and the magnitude of the mismanagement and extent of corruption that was surfacing, Gowon would probably have survived on his popularity. However, he made a crucial mistake by announcing on his Independence Day broadcast in 1974 that he did not believe the country was ready for civilian rule, and he would be postponing the planned 1976 handover. 9 months later, he was overthrown in a bloodless coup.
There was a bloodless coup today in Nigeria, which is Black Africa's biggest and richest nation and the world's 8th largest oil producer. The overthrow of strongman Major General Yakubu Gowon reportedly was engineered by the head of his personal bodyguards. Gowon received word of the coup while at a meeting of the Organization of African Unity in Uganda. He would say only, "There's nothing to worry about." Gowon, who led a 1966 military coup and put down the bloody Biafran civil war 6 years ago, had been confronted by growing student and labor unrest and charges of government corruption. Last October, he went back on a pledge to restore civilian rule in Nigeria next year.
A great number of the men sworn in that day have continued to rule Nigeria till today.
So you're following me, viewers. I hope you are, and I'm sorry for the long break for that error. But so that's it. You see, a counter coup occurred. a bloodless coup. They took out Gowon. In Ghana, it occurred. They took out Achampong, Kufu, and Odate Wellington and others led the government leading up to the Third Republic. And so Ghana was faster with this Third Republic than Nigeria's Second Republic. But Ghana then elected after the violence of the June 4th era, which also showed in Nigeria there was a lot of violence in a counter coup that killed Mohammed Murtala, for which reason they named the airport after him. He was killed in a very violent counter coup. That didn't happen in Ghana. Ghana was a violent coup by J.J. Rawlings, which killed all of them. It killed Achampong, Akufu, and all the Ahmedome and the Free Fire, everybody who was part of the government before. But the similarity really was in 1974, declaration of no more elections. Ghana 1976, no more elections. Both leaders were removed through bloodless coup. That's where the similarity is. Let's move on to what happened. Ghana then went into an election and elected Dr. Hilary Mann. Dr. Hilary Mann had been an old diplomat, foreign affairs person, not particularly political, but then brought into the political limelight by Moro Igala and became president. Same with Shehu Yaradua, what's his name again? Shehu Shagari. Shehu Shagari was very similar to Dr. Liman. He's also a politician of sorts. He works as a civil servant of sorts, not particularly political. And then he's brought into the situation because they were looking for a nice person who is coming from the north. So Shehu Shagari was made leader. Guess what? Who swore Shehu Shagari in? It was Olusegun Obasanjo. Olusegun Obasanjo was the military ruler who decided that he's handing over to civilian authority. J.J. Rawlings was the military ruler who decided his hand over civilian authority. Years later, both of them come back through political elections. That's not particularly similar, but the context is very interesting, isn't it? Here is the swearing-in ceremony of Shehu Shagari in Nigeria in 1979.
Obasanjo committed himself to fulfilling Murtala's transition program, and in 1979 handed power back to the civilians. He then retired to his farm, and the army went back to the barracks.
Okay, so Obasanjo then did that.